So the first thing you need to do is get onto the Companies House website, and you can easily find that just by doing a Google search, but just make sure you are actually on the correct Companies House website, and that will begin with the letters www.gov.uk, and as long as it begins with those letters, then you know you are on the correct site. Okay, and you will come to this page, and it gives you lots of different options. You can find out information about your own company or about other people's companies, which can be very useful for some market research. You can file your company accounts, which is what we're doing today. File your confirmation statement. Well, I've got another YouTube film that shows you how to do that. And also change your company details, and again there's another YouTube film that shows you how to do that. You can set up a new company, which is actually quite simple to do, and then there's information about running a company if you want to close your company down altogether, and then there's plenty of guidance as well. So it's a very simple site to use, and today obviously we're going to be looking at filing company accounts. So I click on that, and it's worth just quickly reading this first page because it tells you a bit about what you actually need before you start. And there are several things you need that I'll talk about later, but the first thing I just want to mention is that you must make sure, if you've got more than one director, that all the directors are happy with the accounts and that they have approved the accounts. You might be running a very small company where it's just you, or maybe you and one other person, but if you have more than one director, then all directors must have approved of the accounts first, so make sure you've got that approval before you go any further. And it's also just worth reading the guidance as well on what your annual accounts should include, and you click on there and you can read that guidance at your leisure. But for now I'm just going to show you quickly how to file your accounts in under 10 minutes. So click start now. And the first thing it asks is, do we want to file corporation tax with HMRC now? Well, actually I don't want to do that now, and I always at this point give a proviso to everybody that if you're not sure about filing your tax, your corporation tax, then you must consult a qualified accountant and get them to help you, because tax is a completely different thing, and filing accounts for HMRC is very different from filing your accounts for Companies House. Companies House is a lot more straightforward. It's something you can do yourself, but when it comes to filing your accounts for tax purposes, you need to obviously make sure you're paying the correct amount of tax. So if you're unsure about that, get an accountant or somebody who has some financial knowledge to help you. So for now I'm going to click no. I don't want to file my accounts for HMRC. I'll use an accountant to help me with that. This is just purely for filing accounts for Companies House. So click save and continue, and then it asks what type of accounts you actually want to file. Well, there are 4 options, but I would suggest that nearly everybody watching this film will be choosing the first option, which is micro entity accounts. There is a chance that you might be filing dormant accounts. If you are going to do that, then watch my other YouTube film where I explain how to do it. It's really simple, but most people will be doing the first one, because if you're running your company and if your company's trading, then the chances are it is going to be micro entity. A dormant company is where your company still exists, it's still registered with Companies House, but you're not actually trading. Full accounts, well, that's for really big companies with massive profits, massive turnovers, and if you're running that type of company, then I'm certain you'll be using an accountant or a financial director to do this for you. So you have no need to watch this film. If you're going to be filing full accounts, then you wouldn't be watching this film anyway. And perhaps likewise with abridged accounts. Micro entity accounts are for small companies, under 10 employees, relatively small turnover. I'll explain the exact figures a bit later, but for most people watching this film, it's going to be micro entity accounts. So save and continue, and then it tells you something that's very important, which I'm going to really emphasize now. And that is the 2 really important things you need before you start filing your accounts. One of them is obviously your email address, which I'm sure you know, but you also need a password, and this is the really important point. You will have a password to enter Companies House website, but it might not be the same password that you use for web filing, and many people fall down at this stage because they keep putting in the wrong password. So make sure you have the correct password for the web filing service, and it's very important to remember this might not be the same password as your company's house password. I've got two different passwords. Some people might use the same password for both, but if you find that you keep getting logged out, then it may be you're using the wrong password, and you have to be very careful, because if you put the wrong password in several times, then you'll get locked out altogether. So make sure you're using the right password for the web filing service, and that may be different from the password you normally use for company's house. And secondly, you need your authentication code. Now, if you've been doing this for a few years, you'll already know what your authentication code is. But if you're new to this, and I should think probably most people watching this film are doing this for the first time or are quite new to the process, your authentication code is something, once you get it, you can use the same one every year, but keep it safe and keep it secret, because it's just like having a password, and if anybody else finds out the authentication code, then they can see all your personal financial information. So be very, very careful to keep the code secret. Treat it just like a password. If you haven't got your code, then you need to get one, and you cannot get it online. You have to have it posted to you, and it can take up to a week to be posted. Now, as you can see in front of you, it says allow up to 5 days for delivery, but I've found from experience that it can take longer than that, so I advise you leave at least 7 days before you get your code. You can apply to get the code online, so it's very easy to apply for it, but it's always posted in the normal post, so it'll arrive through your letterbox. You will not get it online, you'll get it in an envelope through your letterbox, and allow 7 days for delivery if you don't already have it. Then in future years you can just use the same code every year. Okay, so you've got your correct password, you've got your authentication code, you should already know what your email address is, and then you file your microentity accounts. But first of all, you have to sign in. So if you were paying attention a few moments ago, you'll remember what I just said about the password. And I'm going to put in my email address. I don't mind you seeing what my email address is, because most people know it anyway, but I'm certainly not letting you see what my password is. So I'm going to keep that secret. Okay, so I've put in my password, and obviously I wasn't going to let you see what my password is. And so now it's asking for my full name and my mobile number. Now, this is important. You don't need to fill this in unless you're updating anything. So if you've already registered with Company's House and your company's up and running, and this is the first time you've done this, unless you've changed your name or unless you've changed your mobile number, you don't actually need to put anything in these columns at all. It's amazing how many people fill this bit in. You don't actually need to fill it in unless you're making any changes. So skip. Okay, and then it gives you a bit of information about what you can actually do in the web filing service, but the only thing we're doing at the moment is basically just submitting our accounts. The confirmation statement you have to do every year as well, but as I've pointed out already, there is another YouTube film on my YouTube channel that explains how to do the confirmation statement. So for now, we're just going to do the annual accounts. So I click on web filing, and then it asks for my company number. Now, if you don't know your company number, it's very easy to find out what it is, because all you have to do is type the name of your company into the Company's House website, and it'll come up with your company, and then you can just see straight away what your company number is, although you should know what your company number is anyway. So you fill in your company number once you found it, and then you say where your company was registered. And again, in most cases, I think it will be people in England or Wales. It might not be, it might be Scotland, it might be Northern Ireland, but I think most people watching this will have registered their company in England or Wales. So continue there. And it just gives brief information about my company, which is called the Newshound Limited. Confirm and continue. And then it asks you to put your authentication code in once again, and obviously it's a private number which I don't want you to see. It's very important you keep this private, so I'm just going to do this now privately, and then I click continue again, and it brings up this page. Just remember, as I said earlier, I know I'm repeating myself, but do keep your authentication code private. It's just like a password. If somebody gets this, then they can have access to a lot of your financial information. So treat your authentication code just like it's a password. Okay, so store company details for future online filings, and for the time being I'm going to put no. If you want to store it for the future to save time, you can do, but I'm going to put no and continue. And it just takes a few moments. As I've mentioned before, this website can be a little bit slow, but don't worry too much if you're sort of waiting and you think has something gone wrong, because I have noticed that even if you've got fast internet connection, the Companies House website can run a little bit slow. So don't worry too much if you have to wait a while when you click. Things will happen eventually. So then it gives a summary of your company. Now it's saying that my confirmation statement is up to date and also my accounts are up to date, but they're only up to date for a few more days, so that's why it's in red, because my accounts are due in about 4 days time. Confirmation statement I don't have to do for a long time, and it is important every year you do both things, confirmation statement and accounts, so please watch my other YouTube video where I explain how to do your confirmation statement. But today we're going to do the accounts, so I click File, Company Accounts. And it says you can no longer use abbreviated accounts, but as I said at the start, it's unlikely you would be doing abbreviated accounts anyway. So micro entity accounts, and this is the important bit I mentioned at the start, this is for people whose turnover is no more than £632,000 a year, balance sheet total is no more than 316,000, and your average number of employees in the last year is no more than 10. And I think that means that most people watching this will apply to them. It may be that you're doing this for dormant company accounts. You can watch my other film on dormant accounts. If it's full accounts or abridged accounts, then to be perfectly honest, you're probably going to be using an accountant, or you might have a financial director, so you probably won't need to watch this film anyway. But for most people watching this film, it's going to be micro entity accounts. As long as your turnover is less than 632,000, balance sheet no more than 316,000, and average number of employees no more than 10. So I'm going to click on micro entity accounts, and it just repeats that information once more, just making it really obvious that you must not file micro entity accounts if your company is bigger than this. But if it is, I think you're going to be using an accountant. So finally, after all of that, we get through to actually filing the micro entity accounts. Okay, so this is the bit that most people ask me about and get confused about. And if you want to know how to fill in these actual figures in relation to what they actually mean, then watch my other YouTube film where I explain what all of these different things mean, like provision for liabilities, accruals and deferred income, all these different phrases. If you're brand new to running a company, you might not know what these things mean. So watch my other YouTube film and it'll explain what these all mean. But for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm just going to fill in zeros for now. Now obviously 0 is the incorrect figure for my company, but I've just put these in for now just so that you can see how you fill in each of the different sections. The only section I'm not going to put 0 in is called up share capital not paid, and what that actually means is very simply the shares that you issued when you first started the company. So when I first started my company, I issued 100 shares worth £1 each, and so therefore £100 worth of shares, and they are actually part of your balance sheet. A lot of people forget this, that the shares that you issue in your company are part of the balance sheet itself. So it's very easy to work out. Most people just do 100 or 1,000 or a really simple figure. Some people just do £10. It doesn't matter, but obviously there is a price for each share, and then you've got a certain number of shares. So if each of your shares are worth £1, and if you issued 100 shares, then obviously the figure the share capital is £100, and it should stay the same permanently. The only difference is if you issue new shares or if you sell some of your shares. So for example, if you own your own company, you own the full amount of shares, but then you go into partnership with somebody and you sell half the company, then that figure is probably going to, the following year, be 50 because you sold half your company. But I haven't sold any of my company since I set up in 2006, so that figure is going to be 100. So there's my share capital. Everything else, fixed assets, is things like computer equipment, cars, offices, that kind of thing. I explain what all of these things mean in my other video, so watch my other video. So this auto fills as you go along, as you fill in the different assets, fixed assets, current assets, so on, it actually fills it in automatically for you. So as long as you've got the right figures, all these other things, like for example net current assets or liabilities, that fills in automatically. Total assets less current liabilities, well, it's going to be 100 because all the other figures are 0. But as I said before, watch my other film if you want to know what all these things mean, if you want to go into more detail. Okay, and then you get right to the end, and if there are any problems, if there are any issues, it will tell you. It comes up in red, and there'll be a little red triangle with an exclamation mark, and it'll tell you what's wrong for both last year, because you're doing last year's figures, and also this year's figures as a comparison. And it also says, very important, don't include any punctuation like commas, full stops, just put numbers, nothing else, and don't put any pound signs either. So if there are any problems when you click validate and continue, it won't let you validate, and it will come up with these red triangles telling you what's wrong. And also remember to tick these 4 statements. Obviously read them to understand what they mean. It's just basically saying you've done everything legally, you've done everything in accordance with the Companies Act 2006, and you've done everything by the book. But if you don't click those, it's not going to work. So if you find it's not going through, if it's not validating, it might be that you've just forgotten to click these 4 boxes, and you have no choice, you have to click them. If you don't click them, then it's not going to allow you to validate your accounts. You have to put the date of approval of accounts. If you've got a board of directors, then it's the date of the board meeting when the accounts were approved. If you're on your own and you're just doing it yourself like I am, then basically it's just today's date, I guess, or whatever date you want to put down as the day of approval of the accounts. And then obviously put the name, your name, and any other director if there is a director who's also approved them, and then validate and continue. And so here it does give a summary. It's gone through. Newshound Limited, my company, gives a summary, and you can print that out if you want to. Now obviously for the purpose of this film I've just put zeros just to demonstrate how it's done. Obviously I'm going to have to do that properly with my correct accounts, but this is just for a demonstration. So these are all the different headings. If you don't know what these mean, do make sure you watch my other YouTube film before you go ahead and do these accounts, because if you don't know what they mean, you won't know what figures to fill in. But they are very, very simple. Don't be scared by these phrases. If you're new to running a company, it can be a bit daunting, but to be perfectly honest, these are very, very simple if you know what you're doing. And once you've done it once, it becomes very, very easy in future.